Hey everybody, welcome back to the RDCember. We're not gonna talk about the best unit of Wargame that's gonna be coming on Sunday, the 25th, right? That's a Sunday. Today we're gonna talk about the honorable mentions. Essentially, you know, units that didn't get into the top 12, but still had a surprising amount of high votes, or just barely didn't make it. Just here's a list. Ignore the being colored. It's just that I knew where to start. I just colored some things in this turquoise bluish color that surprised me. Right, blue. Sorry, not blue. Green means highest amount of votes in this category. Yellow second highest, and red-ish third highest amount. Right, so you can see the number one unit got the most amount of number 1, 2, and 3 votes. Well, 3 votes tied with the automatic. But we're not here to talk about the top 12. We're here to talk about, what isn't in the top 12. Like, for example, the Amex 10 just barely not making. Well, not barely, still like 8 points behind the Beacon. But it is a very good unit, right? Despite the nerfs it got. The big, you don't even need to really talk about hidden stats here or anything. Still has 9 RPM kinetic gun with good range, good accuracy. It's still weird. Still got 3 front armor, so autocannons kind of struggle. Medium stealth, good optics. It's still got all the good stuff, right? It is not really as broken anymore. It's still a very, very good unit, though. Attack comes. Many people have been mentioning it. In case you don't know, it just one-shots literally any vehicle in the game. Well, except for like the big ships or something like that. Any vehicle caught in the radius of its missile, dead. That's, I think, something that I should maybe tell you or show you. 4-minute salvo reload. After it fired its 2 rounds, it has to reload for full 4 minutes, right? So keep that in mind. It has a huge downtime. And the missiles cost 1,000, right? So one fob supplies the attack cams 8 times, assuming you fire 2 rounds. So with the fob you get 18 shots, assuming you don't use the fob or anything else. So it is very supply intensive. It has a lot of downtime. So yeah, on the one hand it means, of course, maybe you should be careful with how you're shooting it. On the other hand, of course, if you're too careful, then you might just waste it and not use it. Very, very strong, especially if your opponent doesn't expect it, or is just a relatively new player and isn't quite familiar with it. VDV-90, that's just a very solid shock squad, right? RPK is decent, AK-74 is just an assault rifle. Vampire is, of course, amazing, but if you're if you have to compete with this unit, right, then it's kind of obvious. Of course, the VDV-90 do have the Scratch It, which in my eyes is one of the best transports in the game. Incredible utility and just very, very, very useful all around, right? It's got fire support, it's got flank defense. It's a very, very good addition to the Red 4 anti-air tab, especially if you run something like the book, because the Scratch It will very often just deal that 1 chip damage. But of course, whether you should take the Scratch It into account of the VDV-90 being high ranked or not is a discussion in and of itself. EBT, Leclerc, Buratino, yada yada yada, right? I don't need to go through every single unit here. Rafael, though, as you can see, got a lot of number 3 votes for some reason, right? But that's just kind of what happens when you have a relatively low sample size, of course. Rafael, in case you don't know, is unique in a sense that one out of all the top tier ASFs, meaning the ones you get 1 on Elite and 2 on Rookie, and are at least 170 points. It's the only one with 65% accuracy missiles. Every other one has 60%, except for the Bass. That's 70% on the derbies. But not only that, although the Bass also has like only 40% ECM and they have a bit less range. But not only that, it's of course also the stealth. The stealth is just busted in the game. If you take a normal unit and give it stealth, there's a good chance it's just suddenly very, very good. And of course, on a plane or something, yeah, even more so. You can just, especially on big maps that have like a for example, the small version Highway to Seoul, right? There's a right or one of the sides, right? There's no zones, etc. But it's still like a lot of open area. You can. This means you can circle the Rafale there, and generally speaking, it's not going to get spotted unless the enemy has their own ASF up or something, and then catch like spawning planes off guard because you're already so close to the enemy air spawn. A lot of shenanigans you can do with that. There's a small thing though, and that is with the missiles actually, just compared to the Sea Eagle. Comparing the ASRAMs to short range missiles, right? They're fast. If you take a look at the medium range missiles, they're slow. Kind of. Honestly, I didn't do the test, so I can't give you like, can't exactly tell you what it is. The missile starts faster, but it has a lower maximum speed. So I have no idea, honestly. Again, I didn't test it. Which one, assuming you fire at max range, right, arrives first? It's honestly a relatively easy test. I just never bothered. It's in reality, honestly, not the thing you really notice. Getting 5% more accuracy is just so much more useful than having a bit more speed. But and then of course, is it simple? Stealth. Same stealth as, for example, oops. Medium stealth seedplane, right? Not to be confused with the MiG-29M. I think it all has less. Exactly, yeah. The MiG-29M also says it has medium stealth, when in reality, the MiG-29's medium stealth is actually worse. Only 1.25, not 1.5. It's of course, any stealth is better than no stealth, of course. But I think it's worth bringing up. Because the armory, of course, in this case, kind of lies to you, right? Making you think, oh, the stealth is the exact same. No, it isn't. Just like, of course, the good old, guns on planes. Rafael actually has a higher rate of fire, but in the armory, it looks like the Gush 301 has a higher rate of fire. Just, the armory lying to you again. It's only ammo consumption, really. Because you can see, the Rafael actually has 150 ammo, right? So the display rate of fire is actually its true rate of fire. It uses one... I actually never noticed this until now. It uses exactly one round for one shot, right? You can see 150 ammo in the armory tool, and the 150 ammo on the unit card as well. And if you look at the MiG-29, it has 60 ammo on the armory tool. In-game, 150 though. Like, what? It uses 2.5 true rounds per shot. Kind of weird, but it is how it is. Yeah, it's kind of lies to you, right? If you could, yeah, it looks like if you multiply 107.14 by 2.5, you get a 267, I assume. Yeah, so, Eugen Armory thing again. Never M1T, many people have been mentioning this. Where's the Never? Where's Never? Oh, I guess it's number 1. It is only number 20. It is, of course, an amazing unit. Again, given how many people were mentioning it, I don't think I need to mention this really. No real hidden stats that I'm aware of, at least. Let me just double check. I would not think that the missiles suddenly have like a different... Yeah, missile works the exact same. Of course, range and slight accuracy differences. Optics are the same. So yeah, it's not like the missile on the M1T is slower than the one on the M1. What you see is what you get, and that is essentially a non-radar, slightly less accurate, slightly less low range version of your Never M1, your Book M1, your Coop M4. They all have the same stats after all. It's of course amazing, especially if you go up against the US. That is an amazing unit, which is in a way thematic, of course. We didn't know it was invisible, Nighthawk shot down, blah blah blah. But yeah, against the US with like Nighthawk shenanigans covered by Raven and stuff, and an A10 that's trying to tank missiles potentially, a 9 HE non-radar long range 60% ECM anti-air missile does wonders. SU-25T Modschützen are probably the most planned unit that made it this out of like the highest planned unit, I think. Highest ranked planned unit, right? Every other unit thus far had like something special about it, right? Even if it's something small, like on a Legion 90, which is all the light infantry and have one of the best MGs, and they have like one of the best anti-tank weapons on infantry, right? Nothing really all too crazy, but the package makes it. Modschützen, there's nothing really, whoa, right? They're very good, don't get me wrong. And especially with the BMP1 package, amazing. But yeah, then SAS as well. Just a worse version of Eriko's LSTR and SAS F90. So that's again, right? Why are the SAS in but not SAS F90, for example? I would say SAS F90 are just a better choice. Sure, they cost 5 points more, but when they already cost 30 points, 5 points more, right? It's like 1/6, right? And if you then take the 10-point transport, for example, into account, right, it's not even, it's like 1/8 suddenly. On an 8 per card unit. That's 40 points per match. Woohoo, right? Not really a big deal. Plus, you get additional transport options. Granted, you don't get a Lynx H7, but these days, that's not even the transport you want SAS to be in most of the time, unless you're playing something like a motor deck, maybe. Because, especially for Commonwealth, not necessarily for Blue Moto, but for Commonwealth, they're honestly quite an integral part of their anti-air net. Or at least in the early stages, I'd say. But yeah, SSF90 just honestly better. Same stinger, a better primary, they get a carbine, and a significantly better anti-tank weapon. 4 additional AP goes a long, long way. Better ground transport options. Although they don't have an amphibious one, they do get a K-car. And how does this compare to the Saxon? Probably essentially the same, right? I guess a higher rate of fire. But other than that, it's just a 1 armor vehicle. Oryx is honestly a relatively okay transport. Got 8 HP, is pretty fast. I would definitely use it over the Puma, mainly for the speed. It is essentially a Puma after all, right? It's just like twin engine. No, I don't know what they did with it. It's an update. Like you can see like a bit on the tails, a bit different. I don't know. And yeah, SSF90 is just better. Commandos 90. Also a relatively boring unit, but you know, they still got the an quote unquote OP primary with its old stats, so best primary on any shock squad in the game. I'm fairly certain. Mini-Me, best MG, right? Cargo stuff, which is very good, and you don't even have to pay like 25 points for them. That's what makes them so good. The transports, SF is very good for wheel transport, but I don't get a good 5-point transport, and they're very, very similar in a sense to the Stotorp 95, also a Mini-Me. They got the worst primary, but a better anti-tank weapon for sure. True, you lose 10% accuracy, but you get 1 AP and 20 RPM. And I got a very good 5-pointer. Still a good wheel transport. And even 9V, a good one. So, very similar squads. You know, kind of like, of course, Commandos 90 are unprototyped to get them in Blue Mech, but they're give and take. I think on average, if I had the choice, I'd probably choose the 95 Stotrippen because they're a better package with the transports. But depending, especially if I'm playing mech or something, and I specifically want something, just Commandos 90, like a shock squad is very good at tank grinding, but still has like anti-tank capabilities. Maybe I just use Commandos 90 because they just melt infantry, right? I don't know. Very similar squads though. I thought I'd mention them because they're not in the top 28. Now, Commandos. I don't get it. It's for some reason these fuckers, right? They keep being brought up when people talk about the best units in the game. Now, don't get me wrong. Commandosi, they're not horrible, right? They're okay. Especially if you like really just need a special force or something for tongue grinding. 15 HP special forces are actually pretty good for that. Comarnia, of course, 6. So they're not like absolutely useless, right? They got a carbine, they got a good MG. For 35 points, the anti-tank weaponry is just very, very lacking. Like, don't get me wrong, on like a 20-point shock squad or something, RPG 60D, it's okay. You know, not amazing, but okay. Like, good range, good accuracy, but doesn't even one-shot 2 armor and only 10 RPM. Like a 10-point infantry squad, it would honestly be amazing, right? Probably too strong, but amazing. But on a 35-point infantry squad, that's just horrible. It's not like they got the best MG or best primary to make up for it, right? The G11 or a Mini-Me Satcon, no. They got good other weaponry, but, you know, the transports, meh. Like, Hind is okay. MI-17 is good, sure. they got a 10-point wheeled vehicle, which is relatively rare for a red 4. But like nothing out of the ordinary here. And you know, people voted them higher than, of course there's some meme votes in there, but I'm very certain there's a lot of non-meme votes here as well. They ended up getting more points than just these fuckers, right? Same primary, much better MG, and a much better anti-tank weapon as well, right? What's wrong with you? Why? Like, this is not like a new thing, right? I remember back in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, every year, right? At any point when there's a conversation about the best units or favorite units, of course, a different thing, but best units as well, people for some reason bring up Commandos, even though they're not special at all. They're fine, but just that's it. They're fine, right? Nobody voted like the Leopard 2 into the top 30 or something. It's also a fine unit, but like nothing out of the ordinary, right? The Commandos are like the Leopard 2 of infantry, right? They exist. They exist. That's literally it. It's not like they're of course, right? They're not the M24 or some dog poo unit. They're not the what's just like a really bad unit. It's like an absolute awful. They're not the Sinhung of infantry, right? The Sinhung of infantry. What would be the Sinhung of infantry? It's actually a good question, right? I know I'm derailing here a bit, but I gotta vent because this honestly made me a bit mad. What's like the Sinhung of infantry? I feel like saying something like Fliegerfaust is a bit cheating. We gotta talk about like rifle infantry and these 10 HP infantry or 15 HP infantry squads, right? Otherwise it'd be cheating. What's like the Sinhung of infantry? I don't even know if they exist anymore because a lot of like worthless, quote-unquote worthless units like Gornos got buffed in recent patches, right? Maybe like the base Hebjung? Base Hebjung might be like the Sinhung of infantry. Yeah, I think that's a good choice. Or base use means at least I have like an acceptable MG, right? But base Hebjung, I got a garbage MG, basic primary, and a law for 25 points. Come on, right? If they were like 30 points because, you know, pretty old and like relatively weak weaponry compared to special forces. If they were 30 points as a result, while 15 HP, sure, right? But I just don't understand why these frickers get constantly brought up when it's about like best or favorite units, right? Again, favorite units, whatever. If you just like the flavor of them, okay, right? Or you like that 15 men ride in an MI2T, right? Sure, funny. But best units, come on. That actually made me a bit mad. I'm not gonna lie. A52, I found surprising. Like, it's okay unit. It's kind of niche. Still brought very often in USSR, mainly because exceptional optics recon and Iglas. Right, it's very often your main anti-air helo, really. Because the MI24V, while it's okay, you pay for a lot of stuff that you don't really want on an anti-air helo. And you got the optics. The seed missiles, they're nice, don't get me wrong. But I think many people, if there's a choice, might prefer to not have the seed missiles and have this be cheaper and even like one per card additional on top of that. But there are situations where the seed missiles can be really useful, but more often than not, it can be relatively easy to micro against a dodge. At the same time, though, if your opponent micros the seed missiles well, then they can't be easily micro dodged as well. You gotta be a bit careful that you don't waste them, because you can actually put a lot of pressure upon your opponent with this thing sometimes. And then the Challenger 2. Someone has said, oh, so few super heavies, and we might think kind of surprising given how important super heavies are, especially in team games. But then you also gotta think super heavy is, with a few exceptions here and there, like a Challenger 2 having 23 armor, super heavies aren't really that special in with their stats very often, right? Sure, 12 RPM on a Leclerc or a Kiyomaru. You got a 10 RPM on a Vihor autoloaded. You got, again here, the 23 armor on the Challenger 2, 24 AP on the M1A2. Sure, there's some stuff here and there, but most of the time, these things don't matter that much. What matters the most is that you got just a super heavy, right? If you're, it doesn't, this is the same thing with the Leopard 2A5. In my eyes, the 2A5 is one of the worst super heavies in comparison to the others. But at the same time, it is still a super heavy, and most of the time, these small differences don't matter that much. So that's, I think, why they are not really voted that high, because and don't really deserve to be voted that high, because whether you have a 2A5 in your deck or a V-Core or Moderna, maybe a Moderna. Okay, let's let's ignore the Moderna for now. But 2A5, T72BU, Challenger 2, M1A2. More often than not, doesn't really matter that much. Challenger 2 maybe more often than not, but because 23 armor makes it very tanky, but at the same time the 60k mage also makes it sometimes be sort of a sitting duck, so it's a double-edged sword with this tank. But it doesn't really matter which one you have as long as you have one, right? That's my view on it, at least. Which, but again, at the same time, doesn't mean, oh, I think the 23 armor is useless or something. It's just nice to have. They're just not, their own special little stats don't make them stand out nearly as much as, for example, LSTR do compared to SAS, or Legion 90 compared to your VDV 90, or your Panzergrenadier 90, right? Or the AMX 10 compared to the ERC 90 Sagaye. Speaking of, I'm surprised there's no Roycat on the list, at least, up until the 28. Roycat 105 is a very, very, very strong unit. But yeah, that's that. That's the top 28. I didn't really go really much further because then it got kind of difficult to really rank them properly and make sure I got all the votes. There's a funny vote where someone voted like wrote in 5 times Raz or Razzmann and stuff like that. That's pretty funny. There were meme votes like someone writing 5 times Rover Wombat. I already know who that was. I can at least have an educated guess. But yeah, those were the honorable mentions. Let me know what you think deserved to be higher up or in the list at all. What do you think was undeserved? I think many people can already guess what the number 1 unit is. But shh, don't tell anyone. In any case, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye bye.